So in this section, we are going to discuss the concept of variables as well as constants. So in Java, how many types of variables are there and how to declare a constant, we are going to discuss in this part. So let us remove the previous one. So as we know, when we are using a variable, the variable is used to store some value, and at the same time constant also used to store some value. But the basic difference between variable and constant is a variable value may change during the execution of the program, but the constant value will never change during the execution of the program. So once we declare the constant variable by assigning some value, so after execution of the program or during the execution of the program also, the value never changed. But in the case of variable, there is a possibility of changing the value during the execution of the program. So during the execution of program, in the sense during runtime, the value may change for the variable and the value will not be changed for the constant. So let us take a constant here. Let us assume I'm writing integer a equal to 10 I'm writing, for example. So now I want to declare this as a constant here. One more variable I'm taking, integer b equal to 20 I'm writing here. Then so here, what I will do is I'll write final keyword here. Means final is a keyword which is used to declare a constant variable. Now, what I will do is c is equal to a plus b I'm writing. Then system.out.print, I want to print the value of c. Now, so what is going to happen is, so we need to declare the variable here integer c is equal to a plus b. So when we run the code, 30. For example, I want to display some message here. The sum is double quotes and I'm using concatenation operator. So when we run this program, see the sum is 30. Now what I will do is I'll do some simple modification here. So instead of writing c is equal to a plus b, what I will do is a equal to a into 2, for example, I'm writing. So when I'm writing this, as it is showing that the final variable cannot be assigned and it must be a blank and not using a compound statement. Let us assume when we run this code, proceed, as we can see, it is raising an exception. Means what? We declare the variable as a final variable and we are trying to modify the value of that particular variable. So we cannot do this kind of operation here. For example, if I'm writing like this, d equal to integer d equal to, I'm writing here. When we run this code, see we are getting some 30, no error we are getting. That means what? We can use the constant variable in any operation, but we cannot modify the constant variable. So this is about constants. When we come to the variable in Java it supports three types of variables basically. One is called local variable, and the second one is called instance variable, and the third one is called static variable. Right? When we come to the local variable, so these local variables are used to define in a particular block. So whenever you are using a method or whenever you are using a block of statements, so in that block, if you are using that variable, then we can call it as a local variable. So I'm including here comment lines. So for example, here in the main method, we declared integer a, b, c, d, like this, 4 variables we declared here. So these variables are called local variables. At the same time, for example, I'm using one method here outside the main. Let us assume integer add, then integer x comma integer y. So some integer sum equal to x plus y, for example. That means what parameters are going to be added here. Okay, so like this, whenever you are using the variable in a method, whenever you are using the variable in one particular block of statements, then we can call it as a local variable. Here a, b, c, d are the local to the main and x, y, some are the local to add. Like this we can have the local variables, right? So whenever we declare the local variables, these variables are to be used inside the block or inside the method. So the scope is limited to that particular block or the scope is limited to that particular method only. So whenever we are accessing that particular block of statements, only at that time these variables are to be accessed here. So the memory, whatever the memory allocated for these variables, that corresponding memory is to be released after exiting the cursor from that particular branch of statements. That means what? When this particular part of the code is executed, at that time only the memory is going to be allocated for this variable. And once the execution is done, when the cursor is jumped out of this statement, then out of this method, then the corresponding memory is going to be released here. So this is about local variable. The advantage of instance variable is use it to instantiation. If we declare the variable inside the class and outside the main method, then that kind of variables we can call it as a instance variable. So the basic definition we are going to give is the variables which are not static variables and the variables which are declared inside the class and outside the main method. So in that case, we are going to call it as a instance variable. For example, if we declare the variable integer p, I'm declaring here. So this variable, we can consider this as an instance variable. And this variable can be used anywhere inside the class, in the whole class, inside the main method, or inside some other user-defined method, or anywhere inside the class, we can use these kind of variables. So such variables, we can call it as a instance variable. If we take the example of instance variable, when we take instance variable, what I will do is, I'm writing here integer. Let us take n1, integer n2. So two variables I am taking. These two variables are called instance variable here because I declared the variable inside the class and outside the main. Now to access that numbers, we are going to have one method here. So I'm writing void get numbers. So we'll discuss later how to define a method and what is the process to declare a method, that we'll see later. Integer n. Then here, what I will do is, whatever the variables were declared, n1 equal to m I'm writing, n2 equal to n I'm writing. So we assigned the values which are to be accessed from the main method. So now we declare the method, then after we'll go for another method to display. Void display. Then for display, so no need to have any parameters here. Then I'm declaring one variable here, integer sum equal to whatever the variables we have, that variables I'm going to add here, n1 plus n2. Then we are going to display the result here, system.out.print whatever the result we have, that is called sum. So we display the result here. Then we are closing this. So I wrote class edu, two numbers we took here, and void get numbers I'm writing one method here. These two numbers we are passing from the main program. Then we are assigning here, this is called instantiation. Then display method to display the sum after adding two numbers here. Then my demo class I wrote here. In that main method we have, I'm creating object for edu. So whatever the members we have in this class, that members are going to be accessed with the help of an object here. So with the help of X, we can access n1, n2 or mn as well as the display method, and get number method we can accept here. So for that I'm writing x dot get numbers 10, 20, x dot display we wrote here. So this is the first statement which is going to be executed in the program. Then edu x new edu. With this line, it is going to create an object for the class edu. So once the object is created, whatever the members we have, that may be variable or that may be methods which are to be accessed with the help of an object here. For that I'm writing x dot get number, two arguments we are passing 10 and 20. So this get numbers is called here, 10 is passed to m and 20 is passed to n, and we are doing some kind of instantiation here. Then x dot display, it is going to display the sum here, sum equal to n1 plus n2. So when we run this code, as you can see, we got 30. So just for clear displaying, I'm including the sum is concatenation operator I'm using here, right? When we run this code, it is displaying the sum is 30. Like this, we can create any number of objects for this particular code. For example, so I'm taking here the same code again, I'm copying and then I'm pasting here. Now I'm creating another object here. Instead of x, I'm taking y, and with the help of y also, we can access the numbers here, y.display. Now, I'm passing the values here. For example, 100, 240. Now, for x, it is going to access the two members here, and y also going to access two members here. So, see, the sum is 30 and the sum is 340. Let us assume I'm using print line statement here to display the result in another line, or we can also use here \n character. Anyone is possible here, and I'm using print ln here. Then I'm running the code here. As you can see, the sum is first two numbers, the sum is 30, and the next method when we call the sum is 340. This is example for instantiation variable or the instance variable. So when we come to the third type of variable called static variable. So what is the static variable? Here, when we use the static variable, which are used to declared within a class using a keyword called static. So like final, we are going to use static keyword to declare a static variable. Whenever we declare the variable with the keyword called static, without having an object, we are going to access the member here. That means whenever we created the static variable here, as you are seeing here, for example, if you want to access n1, we can access x dot n1 here. With the help of object, we are going to access the member. In the same manner, get numbers, x dot get number, display, x dot display, we are going to access here. Let us assume if the variable is static or if the method is static. For example, I'm writing like this, static void, like this I'm writing. That means what? Without x also we can access that particular member like this. In the same manner, for the variable also, whenever we declare the variable as a static, without object we can access the member, or we can access that particular variable from outside the class or inside the class. Now, why we need to use static keyword here? It is used mainly for memory management. We can apply static variable with the variables, methods, blocks, or the nested classes. Static integer we can write here, integer n1 we can write. At the same time, for method also we can apply static here, right? Like for block of statements we can apply, or for the class also we can apply static here. Now, when that particular static variable can be used to refer the common property of all the objects. In general, whenever you are going to refer the common property of all the objects, then you are going to use static keyword. For example, when we have a company, for every employee, the company name is same. Whenever we have some set of students in our particular college, for every student, the college name is same here. The class name may vary, section may vary, but the college name is same. So whenever we are going to refer these common properties, for that particular case, we are going to use the static keyword. So whenever we created the static variable, it is going to have the memory only once when that particular class is loading. So at that time only, it is going to allocate the memory. Now, if we take the example of static here, now, if we take, so the class edu we took, then I declared the static variables here, static integer n1, static integer n2, two variables we took here. Then the same, I'm writing the static method also, I'm writing static here, static void display. So I'm opening the brace here for display method, integer sum equal to n1 plus n2. So I'm not going to have any separate method for this, just I'm going to print this method system.out.println. The sum is concatenation operator I'm using here, sum, then I'm closing this. Right? This is the method for close and this is the method for class. And the main class I'm writing here, public class demo. Then in the main method, we are going to access that particular variable. The variable we are going to access here, instead of creating an object here, that particular variable belongs to the class called edu. So with the help of edu, we are going to access the member. How? The class name I'm writing here, edu dot. What is the variable name we are going to access here? n1 equal to 10 I'm writing here. Same manner, edu dot n2 equal to 20 I'm writing here. So like this we can write here and we can access the method with the help of the class name itself. So now what is the class name here? Edu dot. What is the method name we are going to use? Display. right? So edu.display. Then close it. Now run the program. We'll see what is going to be happening here. So we got the sum is 30. So the variables we are going to declare as a static variable, and method also we are going to declare as a static here, because the static variable can be accessed only from static method. The static variables cannot be operated from non-static methods, that we'll see in the next video. But meanwhile, just remember this, the static members can be accessed only from static method. That's why the method also I'm writing is a static here. And now, so as static here, no need to have any object here. That's sum equal to n1 plus n2 I wrote, and I displayed the sum here. And from other class, we have a main method here, and edu.n1 equal to 10 and edu.n2 equal to 20, edu.display. So like this, when we call display method, it is going to call this method here, and n1 plus n2. Instead of object name, we are going to have the class name here. So that is about the static variable. When we come to the summary of all the variables, so when we come to the local variable, so if you go to the summary of local variable, when we say the local variable can be used only inside the block here. So the block may be loop, or the block may be control structure, or the block may be main method, or any other method. So inside the block only we are going to declare these variables, and the scope is also we can use inside the block only. It is not possible for us to use the variable which is declared inside the block from outside. When we come to the lifetime of that particular variable, so until the control leaves the block, the variable is live here. Once the control leaves the block, the variable is not going to access here. In case of instance variable, all the variables which are declared inside the class and outside the main method can be considered as an instance variable. When we come to the scope can be accessed throughout the class, but we cannot access these instance variable from static blocks. That is, from static method, we cannot access any instance variable or the local variables. And lifetime, until the object stays in the memory. That is, until the object is live, the memory is going to be available for this particular variable. When we come to the class variable, we can consider this as a global variable. So all the variables which are declared inside the class, we can use these variables throughout the class, and until the program ends, the lifetime of that particular variable is available. This is about scope and visibility of all the three variables. That's all for now. Thank you. All the best.